If I told you 2,000 years ago, in the year 14, I told you that the Jewish people who are right now in Israel, some of them in Babylon, are going to spend the most tumultuous 2,000 years in the history of mankind. They're going to be persecuted. They're going to have blood libels and pogroms and inquisition and Holocaust and expulsion and exile and being marginalized in every which way, economically, physically, to be put into ghettos. They're going to be mistreated. They are going to be the subject of derision and ridicule, and they are going to be mistreated more than any people in the history of man for 2,000 years. Not only that, they're going to be scattered across the globe. They're not going to have a uniting land. They're not going to have a uniting language. They're not going to have a uniting central leadership. And they're going to remain few in number. There's not going to be a lot of them. Right? The numbers will never peak over 20 million. Yet they're going to survive in other people's lands and come back to Israel. If I told you that 2,000 years ago, you would say, Mr. Wolbe, you're insane. Why? Because no nation survives 2,000 years. Right? The idea of an eternal nation is almost unique in history. It doesn't happen. But to claim that you're going to have an eternal nation that is also going to be small in number, not going to be able to overwhelm its conquerors or the people that it encounters, it's not going to have a uniting land or uniting a language or central authority, and they're going to be persecuted and mistreated everywhere they go, that's impossible to predict. But the Torah predicts it. And we indeed, looking back in hindsight, we see that it indeed came true. What was our secret? Like, how are we able to survive when all the other nations, all other comparable nations that were much bigger and much more secure and had much more in the way of uniting factors that kept the nation as a nation, with culture, with language, with land, with central leadership? How are they all gone and we're still around here without any broken chain, any broken link in the chain? As Jews, we say that the reason why we're still around is because of Yom Kippur. Well, whoa, wait a minute. Rabbi, Yom Kippur is a day where we go to synagogue and we fast and we wear white. What does that possibly have to do with our endurance and our eternality as a nation and for us continually existing? What do these things possibly have to do with each other? So I'll tell you. The Talmud tells us, in Tractate Sota, that the Almighty does not exact retribution from a nation until they have filled their quota. What does that mean? That means that every nation is assigned a certain measure of sin, that once that thing gets filled, that's when the Almighty exacts retribution. So look at all the great empires, the Babylonians, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Byzantines, the Ottomans, the Mamelukes, all of these major empires that lasted for hundreds of years and dominated the world. They had years of prosperity, they had years of great leadership, they had years of conquering, of having their way in warfare. They were on top of the world. God did not exact his retribution from them until they filled their sin. What does that mean? All humans sin. Humans sin. But God has a certain value, there's a certain number, a certain degree of sin, whatever that may be. I don't know, I'm not the scorekeeper, but this is what the Talmud says, that God has a certain, there's a certain number, a certain fill, that till it gets full, God doesn't exact any retribution for the sin. But once it gets filled, once they reach the point of no return, so to speak, from their sin, they can no longer undo it, then God destroys them and moves on to a different nation or a different empire. Us Jews, we also have a certain amount of sin that we're allowed, so to speak, an allowance of sin. But we have Yom Kippur. And therefore, every year, as our amount of sins creeps up and we're about to reach the top, we have Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur just like, brings it all back down. It's kind of like those games, Bejeweled and Candy Crush, where like you have a certain amount of time. Once that, but if you get like a big explosion of your buildings or whatever, you get the connections and you align the candies, and then that goes down. Every year, every Yom Kippur, that goes down. So I think this should change our perspective of Yom Kippur entirely. Yom Kippur is the secret, is the key behind Jewish survival, Jewish continuity, Jewish perpetualism. I don't know even know if that is a word. Jewish eternality. We're around today because we have every year Yom Kippur that atones for us for all our sins. And that's why we never fill our quota. And that's why we're still around today. So we should value Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the most important day because it's a day when we wouldn't be around here otherwise. If we didn't have Yom Kippur, we would be gone years ago, thousands of years ago. But we have every year. Yom Kippur comes around, we get atonement for all our sins. We start from scratch. The floors are clean. The house is clean. Our sins are washed away. We're as pure as we were the day we were founded. We got nothing going against us, and we start from scratch. So I think what I hope to gain with this insight is a certain appreciation for what Yom Kippur is, a certain mindfulness about the benefits that we gain from Yom Kippur. We're around today because of Yom Kippur. Think about that. We wouldn't be around today. You and I and the Jewish people and our communities and our congregations none of that will be around today if not for Yom Kippur. What we have as Jews, what we have as a nation today is only because we have this atonement. So hopefully we'll have this certain appreciation for the day and maximize it for what we can accomplish. And when you go see your kids or your shul, or you go visit Israel, and you say that this is all here. We all have this because of Yom Kippur. Let's maximize the day. Let's have the most individual transformation, but also let's keep an eye out for the Jewish nation. We have to pray for them. We have to do what we can to try to make sure that we are positively contributing to the Jewish cause, to the Jewish mission of bringing God into the world. And that is what the verse says. The verse talks about Yom Kippur. Ki bayom hazeh yechaper aleichem latar eschem mikol chatoseichem lifnei Hashem titoru. That long sentence in Hebrew means, for on this day on Yom Kippur, yechaper aleichem, God will atone for us, latar eschem, to purify us from all our sins. Close to God we shall become pure. That's what Yom Kippur is about. It's a day of attaining purity, of attaining a fresh slate, a fresh erasing of all our sins, of all our criminal misdeeds. And that's why we're still around today. And we should appreciate it, the Yom Kippur, for what it is. Shana Tova.